Chikkavira Narsimha calmed down a bit, saying, "If you quickly kill Hechchamanayaka and the king and crown me as the king, I will become a vassal to your king, Ulugh Khan. That would fulfill his desire, wouldn't it?" "That's exactly why we joined hands with you," Qasim said. "But whatever we do, Hechchamanayaka always foils our plans. This time, our plan must not fail. Somehow, we must kill Hechchamanayaka and the king." With that, Qasim whispered a grand conspiracy into Chikkavira Narsimha's ear. After hearing the plan, Chikkavira Narsimha stood up and said, "It's an excellent plan, and I will support it in every way. But this time, we must succeed at all costs." Qasim responded, "We definitely will. But you need to be careful." Chikkavira Narsimha laughed and said, "I've made sure no one suspects me so far. Don't worry about that." After talking for a while longer, evening began to set in, and Qasim took his leave. As Chikkavira Narsimha stood there talking with his chief follower, Gundaya, an arrow suddenly struck Gundaya in the throat. He fell dead instantly. Alarmed, Chikkavira Narsimha and his followers scattered in different directions, trying to save their lives. Arrows came from an unknown direction, killing them one by one until only Chikkavira Narsimha was left alive in the forest. He ran in fear, seeing the bodies of his followers everywhere he turned. In desperation, he shouted, "Who is doing this? What do you want? Come out and tell me. I will give you whatever you ask." A voice replied from somewhere, "You will give me whatever I ask." Trembling with fear, Chikkavira Narsimha said, "Yes, I will give you anything. Just come out, let's sit and talk." A man dressed in blue clothes, with a mask on his face, holding a bow and arrows, emerged from behind the trees and sat on a high rock. Seeing him, Chikkavira Narsimha eagerly asked, "Tell me, what do you want?" The masked man replied, "You conspired with Ulugh Khan to create chaos among the people of Hoysala, planning to kill the king and seize power. As part of this, you gave shelter to the lunatics sent by Ulugh Khan. You had them attack the marketplace, hoping to incite discord among the people. When that plan failed, you tried to have the lunatics kidnap devotees in the temple and kill Hechchamanayaka and, if possible, the king. Meanwhile, you instigated conflicts among the officials through your follower Gundaya, trying to divide them along Hindu-Turuska lines. You smuggled weapons into the temple through the chief priest, claiming you were doing it to establish Islamic rule. You manipulated Khadir, a good warrior, into this conspiracy, making him believe it was for the sake of Islam. When this plan also failed, you murdered the priest and his wife to eliminate witnesses. And now, you've agreed to open the secret tunnel into the royal palace for the thugs sent by Ulugh Khan to kill the king. You won't hesitate to kill anyone to gain power. You said you would give me whatever I want. Then bring back the lives of the 20 innocent people who died in the marketplace. Bring back the life of Khadir, whom you deceived and condemned to a lifetime in prison. Restore the trust that you will never again engage in such conspiracies for power, the masked man demanded. Terrified, Chikkavira Narsimha stammered, "How do you know all this? Who are you?" The masked man removed his disguise, and Chikkavira Narasimha's eyes widened in shock. "Hechcha, is it you?" he gasped. "Yes, it's me. I extracted all this information from a lunatic whom I saved from execution. If you come quietly, you can spend the rest of your life as a prisoner in the Dwarsamudra prison, along with that lunatic. Otherwise, like your followers, you too will become a corpse right here," Hechchamanayaka warned. Chikkavira Narasimha's face turned grim as he walked closer to Hechchamanayaka. "This is what I deserve for my deeds. Come, Hechchana, let's go and face judgment in front of everyone," he said. But as he spoke, he slowly drew a small knife from his waist and attempted to attack Hechchamanayaka. However, Hechchamanayaka dodged the attack and said firmly, "I know that people like you only change after death." He then kicked Chikkavira Narasimha hard, causing him to be thrown back. At that moment, Hechchamanayaka took an arrow, notched it to his bow, aimed at Chikkavira Narasimha, and released it. The arrow flew swiftly and pierced Chikkavira Narasimha's heart, killing him instantly. Afterward, Hechchamanayaka donned his blue mask once again and quickly rode off towards the city of Hampi. The next day, when news reached the king that his brother's body was found at the kingdom's border, he was deeply saddened. "He met this fate because he didn't listen to me," the king wept. After the bodies were brought back and given royal funeral rites, one of the military officers examined the arrows found in his brother's body and said to the king, "These arrows are the type used by Ulugh Khan's soldiers. It seems they were the ones who killed your brother." Hearing this, the king looked towards Hechchamanayaka, who stood quietly, staring at the ground in sorrow. Noticing this, the king nodded in agreement with the officer's conclusion and then walked towards his palace. As soon as the king entered the palace, Hechchamanayaka followed him and said, "King, I need to tell you something in private." The king led him into a secret chamber in the palace. After a moment of silence, Hechchamanayaka spoke, "King, until now, I have never done anything without your permission. But yesterday evening, without informing you, He began to say, but the king interrupted him by placing a hand over his mouth. "You didn't do anything to my brother. It was Ulugh Khan's soldiers who killed him. Let this be the story that spreads among the people. My brother doesn't need to bear the stigma of being a traitor. This truth should remain between the two of us." "Where is the soldier you saved?" the king asked. Hechchamanayaka looked at the king in surprise and asked, "King, how did you know about this?" "To be honest, I didn't know for sure, but I suspected it," the king replied. Hechchamanayaka, still astonished, said, "King, that prisoner is now being held in our jail in Dwarsamudra." "Very well," the king said as he walked out of the chamber. He paused for a moment and added, "For the protection of our kingdom, do whatever you think is necessary without waiting for my permission, as I've already told you." With that, he left. Hechchamanayaka looked after the king with even greater respect before returning to his quarters. With Chikkavira Narasimha and his followers gone, and no one else in the kingdom willing to ally with him, Ulugh Khan had to postpone his plans to invade the Hoysala kingdom by several months. He instead turned his attention to Orugallu, which he renamed Sultanpur, and appointed a Hindu general who had helped him conquer the region as its governor, renaming him Malik Maqbool. Ulugh Khan then returned to his original capital, Delhi, where he took the name Muhammad bin Tughlaq and was crowned as ruler. Years passed, but an opportunity to fulfill his ambition of conquering the Hoysala kingdom never presented itself. However, that opportunity finally came to him in the form of Kampili. Kampili was a small kingdom located north of the Tungabhadra river, ruled by a king who was once a vassal of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. For reasons unknown, the king of Kampili rebelled against Tughlaq and declared independence. Unable to tolerate this defiance, Tughlaq sent two Turuska generals with a small army to suppress the rebellion in Kampili. These two Turuska generals displayed great courage and successfully crushed the rebellion in Kampili. Impressed, Tughlaq entrusted them with the administration and tax collection of the region, which they managed efficiently. Had Tughlaq's ambitions stopped there, the story might have been different. But once he decided that it should happen this way, is it something that can be stopped by humans? The commander Hechchamanayaka stood at the southern gate of the city of Hampi, looking at the entire city. As he glanced towards the gate, he saw merchants, Arab traders, travelers, and employees coming into the city. He didn't know when exactly, but the king had arrived and stood behind him. After a while, Hechchamanayaka turned back and said to the king, "King, when did you arrive here? It's not good for you to come alone without a canopy, chamara, fan, or a troop of soldiers. They say that if a king crosses the fort alone, it will lead to trouble. How can you come alone like this?" The king smiled and said, "That's not a problem, but if you are here, is there any threat to the kingdom? Nothing will happen. However, I want to walk with you for the entire day. May I walk with you?" Hechchamanayaka replied, "It is my fortune to walk with you. Why do you exert